Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We have another great round of startups presenting with us. And on the panel today, we have two of our standard investors that are here talking about their group and what they're doing, as well as asking questions to the audience. First, let's introduce Dave Friedman. Dave, can you tell the audience more about yourself and Tech Coast Angels and your role there?
Yeah, well, we're no longer Tech Coast Angels. That's the first thing. We have just rebranded about a month ago TCA Venture Group because we've expanded what our reach is, not only in terms of the traditional angel investing, but we are also looking upstream. We have done through our 6 networks now. We've just added one in Georgia, Florida, basically from pre-seed through A round, and we'll take a look at the returns individually. We have 400 members plus in the 6 networks. We invest in a variety of companies. About 40% of our deals are in the life sciences, healthcare area. Then we do the traditional stuff in technology, SaaS, IoT, technology per se, EdTech, MarTech, FinTech, XTech. We don't do a lot in consumer products. That said, we've invested in a few consumer product companies, some good, some bad. But we're very diversified. It's always a pleasure to see you guys and participate. Looking for the next unicorn.
Great. Thanks, Dave. And we also have with us Michael Schmansky of MD Capital, very experienced with the Angel MD world as well as with life science deals. Michael, can you tell us more about MD Capital and what you guys did there?
Absolutely. So 20 years in finance on Wall Street and whatnot, but the last 3 years I spent working with Angel MD, which is a clinician network that tries to seek healthcare startups, source them, evaluate them, and invest on the back end. As part of working with Angel MD, I created a framework, an evaluation framework that we're using at MD Capital. The idea is to better perform a due diligence evaluation on healthcare companies from a clinical perspective as opposed from a purely financial perspective. We believe this represents a very nice counterpoint to a lot of the financial or kind of standard investment analysis practices that we use for companies, because healthcare is decidedly different. And one thing I would very much like to put out there to anybody either in attendance or watching this video afterwards is that the evaluation framework itself has been created to educate the evaluators in the investment process as well. So if you are interested in healthcare innovation and investment in early stage companies, we highly recommend you sign up as an evaluator. Non-specified evaluators can use this as an opportunity to educate themselves on the companies and the frameworks of how to think about companies. Specialists in the fields are open for compensation, whether that be directly from the company in a cash payment or whether that be in the form of equity. It also is an awesome opportunity to meet these companies one-on-one to become either an advisor or an investor down the line. So it's a framework and a way to become familiar with this area, and we open it up to anybody that's interested in investing. Definitely contact Hall to get my contact information. We'll reach out afterwards. Thank you. That's all.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us today. Let's go ahead and kick into our first presenter today. Today we have with us Buddy Lyons of Intech. He'll be up here on the stage in just a moment, and he can open up. Buddy, thank you for joining us. If you could go ahead and launch your slides and kick off, we can kick into it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Hall. Appreciate it. Hi, I'm Buddy Lyons. I'm the CEO of Intech Medical. We make acoustic wearables for predictive medicine. We're a digital health company and commercial. We just launched our first product last year, Previs AI, that we'll talk about. And then we have a Previs AI platform that we plan on doing 2 FDA submissions probably next year. If I can get my slides to move. So Previs AI, we're expecting a revenue generation in the first half of this year. It is precision medicine. It predicts postoperative ileus to reduce readmissions and length of stay in abdominal surgery. We've got a very strong sales pipeline now that we're looking at 13 hospital systems with 94 hospitals. We've got 8 additional ones that are in a current clinical trial of ours to collect data for sales and marketing that have 100 hospitals in those. And then evaluation at HCA hospitals expected to begin in mid-2024, which could eventually open us up to HCA nationally, when that's about 185 hospitals. So very strong sales pipeline. We're expanding the sales reps from about 18 now to 32 by the middle of the year. And our Previs AI platform, we just finished a heart and lung study, which really strongly argues for doing a very differentiated wearable for continuous monitoring and asthma that we can file on in 2025. And Previs AI Gut, which is the follow-on product to Previs EA, expect to be filed there too. It's a more accurate product with machine learning as well. As far as the financing goes, we're doing a $2 million convertible note with potential to take it to $3 million. This has just come about very recently. We're looking at the numbers and what we expect to do in sales for the year. And with modest sales, that $3 million could probably get us to cash flow break even in the first half of 2025. The lead investor on this is CTI. The importance of that is they are the primary sales arm of Previs EA, covering 20 Midwestern states. They've done this for over 40 years. This is their second investment, and they have very high confidence that Previs EA will transform post-op care and major abdominal surgery. So about that, the need for postoperative ileus care prediction is very necessary. It's the most common complication in up to 30% of major abdominal patients. It's acute paralysis of the GI tract that begins 24 hours after surgery. It's the leading cause of readmission and prolonged length of stay in this patient population. The problem is that at-risk patients cannot currently be identified, and so everything is done. The current protocols are reactive. You have a couple of different ways that those protocols are enacted. You have delayed oral refeeding and delayed discharge, where they don't feed you for several days and they hold you for a long time. The great part about this is you have zero readmissions. The bad part about this is you're holding up to 80% of your cases 3 to 5 days longer. On a Medicare case, you probably lose about $11,000 per case in intestinal surgery. Then we move to early oral refeeding or early discharge that's associated with ERAS programs. I have a shorter length of stay of about 5.5 days, but you have a readmission rate of about 20%. You're still losing money on those cases. None of this is working really well from a patient care and safety standpoint or from a financial standpoint. Previs EA is precision medicine. It proactively identifies patients that are at risk for postoperative ileus, and it enables a personalized post-op refeeding and discharge strategy to optimize length of stay and reduce readmissions. It's very simple to use. You place it on the patient's abdomen within an hour of surgery. And what it's looking for is an acoustic biomarker that we call MH4. And at post-op hour 12, it counts the number of detections and compares it to a predefined threshold to establish the risk. In the paper that we just had published last year in the Journal of Medical Devices, it's about 86% sensitive, and the negative predictive value is about 95%. So it works extremely well. The benefits of this are the low-risk patients can undergo early oral refeeding and early discharge, which reduces your overall length of stay. The high-risk patients, and you would institute delayed refeeding and delayed discharge, which reduces your readmissions dramatically. It increases patient safety because you're not leaving in the hospital for so long or not letting them go too early. And it turns a lot of those losses that are having right now from in a fixed payment system, the hospital could actually break even or make money on those, which would be tremendous. The value prop, we show them, we look at their length of stay, we compare them against hospitals with a similar case mix index or hospitals that do similar types of cases that they do. And in this particular hospital, like we could reduce the length of stay up to 4 days and lower readmissions by about 43%. And with the budget impact model that was actually developed by a third-party health economics firm, in intestinal surgery alone, the budget impact would be about almost $10 million. That's just intestinal surgery. If you brought that out to major abdominal surgery, the impact of that would be 5 to 7-fold what it is if you were using it hospital-wide. The Previs EA assurance program, there's a lot of difficulty in getting new technologies in the hospitals because they've been promised a lot and a lot of fallen up short. So we developed this to be able to allow them to be able to evaluate Previs EA risk-free. The devices are purchased up front. We establish some baseline data with them. And it's a guaranteed ROI. Either it shows an ROI, and ROI could be, 1 day decrease in length of stay amongst a group of patients or something like that, which is a very small bar to do on most hospitals. Then, if the ROI gets there, then they start buying devices and using it hospital-wide. If not, then we'll reimburse the cost of the devices themselves. This also gives us real-world length of stay and readmissions data to show other hospitals about how it's working in the real world, and gives us publishing rights which can be used for sales and marketing as well. The market's quite large. In the US, it's about a $4 billion market. In the EU, it's about a $4 billion market. We don't really have great data out of Asia, but obviously that could be a huge boon to this. The device can be made rather inexpensively and would be great for those markets as well. It is currently a single-use device. Every patient gets a new one, but we're using to a multi-use platform within 12 months. It's sold directly to hospitals. 18 reps right now, expanding to 32. We seek out surgeon champions. It's not just the surgeons either. It's the CMOs, the chief quality officers, and other people who are interested in quality metrics that we've actually been introduced to surgeons through so that they can reduce average length of stay and readmissions in their hospital. The ASP of about $600 usually gives at least a 4, usually a 10 or more ROI to a hospital. And just moving from a single-use device to a multi-use device can increase the margins from about 75% now at scale to about greater than 95% with a multi-use device. Right now, we're instituting, we just started, have some hospitals interested in the Previs Assurance Program, and we'll get, that's really going quite well among the interest of that. And then expanding the sales force, we think is going to do well. Sort of in the sales pipeline now, this is what we have. We have the 8 clinical sites that we all know when the trial is over in mid-year, they all want to come on board as customers. We currently have 4 other hospital systems who represent 45 hospitals that want to move toward a Previs Assurance Program or just straight to Value Analysis Committee. 12 additional hospitals that we're working with to have strong clinical support. We're building the cases there to take it to their administration. And then the HCA hospital evaluation that we expect to start in the near term opens us up, not just to that hospital, but then to the division that hospitals in, and then nationwide to the other 185 HCA hospitals. So there's a lot of things going on with regard to traction. We think we're on the cusp of, in the next couple of months, of really doing some great things. I just put it here to show you potential of this at our current places where we're talking to right now. It is quite substantial among those 2 sets of hospitals that we have going on. Previs EA really, which is a single featured engineer, we're looking for a particular feature called MH4. Well, we moved to Previs AI to really come up with a better product for determining postoperative ileus in patients. But this product is much better, and we think we can file a 510K in 2025. The platform is already built. All the infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure is already done. It's a more accurate device out of the box because we can handle ambient noise in the cloud better. It's continuing to improve performance for machine learning, and it costs half to make one of these devices that it does a Previs EA device. We think we can launch that either late next year or early 26. And then lung data, we did a heart and lung study recently and released some data which strongly argues for doing an asthma device. And it did show that this is a rapid development platform because that data was just released in last December, and we believe we'll be doing a filing in 2025 for that device. The current technology right now, patients have to blow in their spirometers multiple times a day, and there's a lot of non-compliance, and you end up with all these patients, almost 2 million ER visits a year and almost $500,000 hospitalizations because of non-compliance. Our device is a wearable, and they wear it all the time, and so that doesn't take any patient effort to be able to do this. The technology to getting to that is it's not a very big technological leap because the cloud infrastructure behind this has already been created for Previs AI Gut. We can deliver the data directly to a physician to enable outpatient, and it'll improve compliance and reduce hospitalizations. And it's a very large market with about 12.5 million moderate to severe patients. The current technologies right now are just not a great solution for what's going on. And obviously the numbers drive that. So there's a lot of technology being developed in this area, but we're doing a prediction here. We're not waiting until something happens to a patient so that it can be mitigated so we can prevent that. The same thing in the heart area in CHF, where lots of technology can tell you when a patient's already in decompensation. But we believe, and we're working on looking into this now, developing a device there where we could tell you before the patient goes into decompensation to mitigate that event. We've achieved all of our objectives in this trial, being able to distinguish between heart and lung sounds, a tight correlation between predicted measures of spirometry and the true measure of spirometry was really tight. The respiratory audio are highly correlated with respiratory rates. So the technology, Previs AI platform, is working really well in development of that. We've got a very seasoned management team with me. I've got 25 years experience in this. John Cromwell is a surgeon who's the inventor of all this technology. He's also an AI expert who's invented all of our platforms. Andrew Forsick's been working with early stage companies for over 20 years. Gene Stefanato, who's our vice president of operations, has worked for 4 very large med tech firms around the world. Very experienced sales team with Jason Forcione at Clinical Technologies and Sean Foydick. So it's a very, very well-rounded with people with lots of experience, with lots of exits and those kind of things. So we are looking at, we brought Previs EA to market with about 3.75 million in total corporate expenses, and all this stuff through 2022 and 2023 are the things that we've accomplished. And now we want to get to that $2.5 million and maybe take that to 3. If not, we may do a price round depending on what we do with the Previs AI technology in the future. We believe we can get to cash flow break even by first half of 2025. This year is about driving Previs AI really, and it's about collecting data in the Previs Assurance Program and what we call the Ambulatory Colectomy Collaborative Program, and developing a Previs AI lung prototype device. Next year, it's submissions. Submissions for Previs AI Gut, the successor product of Previs EA, doing a CE mark on the same product, potentially filing one for Previs AI Lung. And then there are several strategics who are interested in this technology, and they're waiting for it to be wrapped up in a bow and get to an appropriate sales level. And we believe those exit discussions will begin in earnest when we start generating significant enough revenue to demonstrate the traction in the marketplace. Thank you, Hall. I really appreciate it. And what questions does everybody have?
Thanks, buddy. Dave, what's your first question?
Yeah, sorry if you called on me. Yeah, so the
Yeah.
first question I have is, tell me about your patents. And the second component of that is, who else is developing something similar in terms of at least the first application for non-invasive monitoring after surgeries for the abdomen?
Yeah. Of the patents, we have 3 patents. 3 of those patents are on the underlying technology for Previs EA. One of those is a patent for a broad patent for the Previs AI platform that includes, the postoperative ileus thing, as long as and some other applications. So those are the patents, and we have them issued in the U.S. and in the several countries in the EU. China.
Is it a technology or use case patents? Sorry to interrupt.
There's a method patent and a systems patent, and then there's a patent that's actually on the configuration of the device itself, on the commercial device. Some of these are combined in other countries. It just depends on what the patent system, wants. But it's all basically the same coverage. You know what I'm saying? With regard to patentability. There have been other companies like GI Logic who have tried this. Actually, we use their device for as a predicate device for Previs EA. However, the device is not being marketed and the company is not being heard from. G-Tech has got some things that they do some at-home monitoring for IBS type diseases and that kind of thing. They have said that they might be interested in getting into the space. We've not seen any data from them or heard of any clinical trials going on. So right now, we definitely have the first mover advantage, and there's nobody.
Sorry, buddy. I missed that little part, and I apologize for interrupting you. I was adjusting my shade here. Did you say that you were looking at it for irritable bowel and other types of Crohn's disease and other types of bowel?
No. I said there's a company called G-Tech out there who has some technology that does at-home monitoring technology of that, who has said that they would like to get into this.
Oh, they're interested. Sorry, that's what you're saying.
We haven't seen anything from them in this with regard to clinical trials or anything like that, and really don't know if their technology can do it or not. So the point was, we have definite first mover advantage. I think when we get to Previs AI Gut, it's going to be really, really hard for anybody to enter this market. Number one, because that device is so accurate that it would be very hard to beat. You'll have a sensitivity and a negative predictive value, both probably in the 90s. Number two, it's so inexpensive to produce that it would be hard to compete on that level too. So you've got those 2 things going for you if somebody were to enter the market. But frankly, we're not really expecting that to happen. In the other spaces, in the asthma space, there are other devices that do spirometry, but spirometry is just not a good remote monitoring device for a patient when you're depending on the patient to monitor themselves, basically. We're doing prediction of a bronchospasm and hoping to get there before that happens so that they can do something to prevent that bronchospasm from happening. There's a lot of stuff being done in heart right now, but most of that, again, is reactive. It's not proactive technology. It's like the patient's in decompensation. Well, great. Now the patient's in decompensation. That's already happened. We want to tell you it's going to happen when it's going to happen so that you can prevent that from happening. That's what keeps people out of the hospital, not diagnosing them after they already have something. So those are the differences in what we do and other potential competitors in the marketplace.
Great. Thanks, buddy. We're at the end of our time. Appreciate it. We'll have time in the breakout sessions to do more questions with the investors. And with that, let's go to our next presenter. We have coming up next, Tyler Zanin of EndoShunt. Hey, Tyler, thanks for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having us.
Show your slides and kick off when you're ready.
Absolutely. 1 second. Hopefully everything's coming through in your guys' end.
We see it now. Go ahead.
Perfect. So our goal is to shed light on an unspoken pandemic that's robbing our young adults of their lives, our families of their loved ones, and our communities of their futures. And that public health crisis is uncontrolled abdominal bleeding. And in just the 15 minutes we've been given for this presentation, it'll claim over 40 additional lives. My name is Tyler, and I'm the CEO of EndoShunt. We're a Class 2 medical device on a mission to end these preventable deaths by giving surgeons the gift of time so that they can give patients the gift of life. From a clinical perspective, the sad reality that we're fighting against is the time to death from abdominal hemorrhage or bleeding once surgery begins is actually shorter than the time it takes to access the sites of these injuries, putting our healthcare professionals in the helpless position of knowing how to save a life while lacking the tools they need to effectively do so. And because of that, there are nearly 2 million deaths every single year worldwide due to uncontrolled abdominal bleeding. And unfortunately, common causes are on the rise with things like violent crimes, car accidents, or even complications during routine surgery. But even for those lucky enough to survive, as we just spoke about, roughly 3 out of every 5 suffer from life-altering complications and nearly a year's worth of painful recovery due to the secondary trauma caused by today's current treatment alternatives. In over 500 healthcare discovery calls, this problem has rung true. We've heard heartbreaking stories of loved ones unable to return to their families simply because our healthcare system lacks the tools they need to succeed. This industry is in desperate need of a solution, and EndoShunt is that solution. We empower our surgeons with the ability to gain rapid, targeted control over abdominal bleeding. Our device is inserted through the femoral artery or vein and traced to the aorta or the IVC, where it can be deployed to occlude blood flow from the inside. EndoShunt's novel size adjustability empowers surgeons to make sure that their patient's blood is flowing to where it should without flowing out of where it shouldn't. And once the injury has been fixed, our device is completely removable and temporary in its application. To date, we have proven effective hemorrhage control in both simulation and animal testing models. In these industry simulations, our patients lost blood at a rate that would result in death in just over 2 minutes. But EndoShunt gave these same surgeons the ability to stop bleeding in as little as 30 seconds and sustain that over the life of the experiment, buying them the time they need to effectively save lives in the future. While simulated data is exciting, it's a whole nother challenge to show this in a biological system, and I'm incredibly happy to share that we've done that today. What we're looking at now is our device deployed in the IVC of a pig. You can see our surgeon pointing through the shunt itself in between a 1 centimeter laceration. It's important to note that this injury would fill the abdominal cavity of blood in just seconds, and you could see no active bleeding. What's not seen here is the successful surgical repair and the removal of our device without causing any observable damage to the inside of the aorta or the IVC post-surgery. This industry hasn't seen true innovation since World War II, and because of that, unfortunately, our patients and our providers are suffering. Alternatives simply are not good enough. Packing is incredibly invasive, requires surgeons to open the patient and race against time to find the injury before the patient unfortunately bleeds to death. It has limited clinical effectiveness and even gets in the way of successful surgical repair. Cross-clamping, its less invasive counterpart of balloon occlusion, goes upstream of the injury site and cuts off blood flow to the rest of the body. While this may mitigate hemorrhage, it starts to starve our tissues of oxygen that in just 15 to 30 minutes can lead to complications as serious as blood poisoning, amputation, or organ failure. EndoShunt really is the only option that gives our surgeons the time, the targeted control, and the technique that they need to save lives and improve downstream health outcomes. But don't just take our word for it. Trauma surgeons throughout the United States recognize the value that we will bring to this market, calling our device a game changer, or saying they would use it tomorrow if it were available. And what we love to celebrate on this slide are these are not just any trauma centers. These are industry leaders. Places like George Washington University, where the president goes in the event of a trauma incident, or Shock Trauma Maryland, who likes to boast that they're decades ahead of the rest of the trauma community, are actively engaged in future pilot conversations when our device gets FDA clearance. From an IP perspective, we filed for the category of temporary endovascular shunting and intend to use this filing to build platform-level IP to support our ability to capture healthcare markets across numerous verticals in the industry. We've ensured our freedom to operate and developed key design features that'll help us capture market for decades to come. In a perfect world, we wouldn't need our device, but unfortunately, this isn't a perfect world. Using the Trauma Quality Improvement Program dataset, which is every trauma incident reported in the United States, we've accurately defined our target markets. Our $366 million beachhead are cases validated by surgeons where we are the best or the only option for dealing with those causes of hemorrhage. From here, we'll expand to all abdominal injuries of use, international trauma markets, and other therapeutic areas that have expressed interest, giving us access to a nearly $60 billion annual opportunity. We'll capture this by launching first in trauma, where our expertise is deep and our connection to key opinion leaders is strong. We'll pursue a pilot launch where we'll build real-world evidence ahead of our true commercialization in 2026. The revenue generated in trauma will fund the R&D necessary for label expansions in transplant surgery and surgical oncology. And in the future, with minor changes to our device, such as shortening the catheter and making the shunt skinnier, we'll be able to produce indications in OBGYN for cesarean section blood flow control or even control during postpartum hemorrhage. From a financial perspective, our device carries with it an incredibly competitive price point, while leaving us a healthy gross margin that'll make us an attractive acquisition target for numerous strategics in the industry. For our trauma centers, we give access to nearly $26,000 of reimbursement on existing codes per patient, but more importantly, we can give them access to nearly $4 billion of annual additional care opportunities they can't reach today simply because their patients aren't living long enough to receive it. When we get to market, we expect to win because we were able to help patients, surgeons, and our trauma centers. For our patients, we could reduce mortality, morbidity, and recovery time. For our surgeons, we give preoperative control over bleeding, targeted control that de-risks complications, and we seamlessly fit into their existing clinical process flows. And for our trauma centers, we carry a competitive price, give access to reimbursement on existing codes, and make sure that they're able to carry out additional care opportunities that not just help their KPIs, but also their access to financial capital. In greater detail, we expect to break even on just 9 trauma centers in 2026. That's just winning 4 additional centers after our targeted pilot launch. With the assumed growth rate of 1 center per sales rep per month, we can predict revenues as high as $21 million in 2026 or nearly $90 million in 2028. Our team is perfectly built to get this device to market. I joined the company in March of last year after a decade of industry-leading development leadership experience at both Medline Industries and AbbVie Pharmaceuticals. Our CTO is a catheter-based engineering expert whose skills to date have been instrumental in producing a product that others thought was impossible before. Our 2 trauma surgeons, Dr. Jeremy and Dr. Milan, help ensure that we are developing this product with our end users in mind so we can be successful when we get to market. Outside of our direct internal team, we boast an extensive network of mentors and advisors that help us de-risk our path to market while avoiding mistakes and capitalizing on opportunities that they've experienced to date. In addition, we have an extensive network of scientific and clinical strategy advisors who help make sure that our device is going to be fruitful once it gets to market. But outside of these internal teams and connections, we're making sure we're partnering with the right industry experts to improve our chances of success. Our QMS is directly aligned to what the FDA and EU MDR need to see post-clearance. Our regulatory consultants are the same exact organization responsible for our predicate devices clearance, giving us a fast track of lessons learned on how to succeed ourselves. Our manufacturing supply chain are industry experts in their respective materials and are all US-based. And we're even pursuing R&D opportunities with the US Army and Air Force to make sure our device is fit for the military population as well. We've come a long way since our proof of concept. On just $400,000, we performed over 500 customer discovery calls, we filed our own IP, and we've demonstrated effective hemorrhage control in both simulation and animal models. We're currently raising a $2 million seed round, of which we're over half committed and currently closing out on a lead investor. This money will get us through FDA clearance. And in the future, we predict a $6 million Series A that'll support our path to profitability and the expansion of our team for sales success. Specifically, this is being raised on a convertible note with a 25% discount, 7.5 interest, 2-year maturity, and $8 million valuation cap. The money itself will go predominantly to product development, with roughly 26% set aside for our FDA clearance pathway itself, and roughly 17% to the expansion of our internal team and the continued partnerships with our legal consultants. But these last few slides are everything we're asking from investors. We always like to close with what we're promising to our seed round investors. As we commercialize in 2026, on just $3.15 million in revenue or 525 units, we could start to generate nearly 10x returns for our seed investors. Assuming Series A dilutions in the future, with 3,500 units sold in 2027, we begin to generate over 20x returns. And finally, capturing just 20% of the US trauma market only, not counting sales in other verticals or other countries, we could generate triple-digit returns for our seed round investors. In the future, EndoShunt will get the gift of time, to our trauma surgeons. And by helping us get this product to market, you can give the gift of life to the trauma patients. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Great presentation. Michael, what's your first question?
The first, right out of the gate, I'm coming military. So like, I mean, as soon as I heard you, I'm thinking two use cases. You're talking trauma surgeons. I'm thinking ambulances and military doctors. That's really the, like, when you give your data the 5 to 25 minutes, it's way too fast. Like, you need to hit there at the site of the accident or the trauma. You can't wait to get them to the surgeon at the hospital. So it seems to me your primary sales point is there on the emergency front. Is that correct?
So, Michael, all the data we presented to you in this are only the people that make it to the trauma centers. You're absolutely right. Roughly 70% don't even do that.
And that's your use case, right?
When it comes to getting through regulatory clearance with the FDA, that's somewhere we'll expand to in the future.
Understood. Okay. So that was my second question is given that emergency tech is almost impossible to get past the FDA for exactly what you're talking about, your intention is to go directly to the trauma unit survivors and use kind of the least critical population to prove efficacy?
Absolutely. And in parallel to that, we have military partnerships with Fort Campbell and a few other organizations where we'll be using it in the military population.
That's all I'm thinking. Like, as a businessman, I'm thinking to hell with all of that. Because now you're talking about, I have to sell my units on a per use basis. Like they're not going to buy another one until they actually save somebody. Whereas if I'm selling to the military, I'm putting one of these in the pocket of every tech that's hitting the field, right? I'm sending 50,000 of these to Ukraine. You know, like I'm doing everything. It's part of every military support package out there for your doctors within, you know, even in Israel right now, right? Like we're talking about that, like anywhere there's a lot of trauma, you're there. So
absolutely.
I'm almost wondering why you want our money, given that you should just be spending all of your time writing grants to DARPA at this point, in my mind. So talk to me a little bit about your choice of private versus just focusing on the military action.
We could appreciate that. So the device is actually developed by trauma surgeons with immediate solutions for what they're seeing in trauma centers today.
Okay.
In our pipeline of expansion, in parallel to that, we're growing out those military connections with key opinion leaders in that area. And in the future, in transportation, the UK actually has trauma surgeons who ride on ambulatory care. So we intend to prove out our use case internationally for that respect. So it's not one or the other. It's
great. Thanks, Tyler. David, what's your first question?
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out, first of all, I like it. I want to get you in front of a group that we have called Medical Monday, where we have several hospitals involved. Two quick questions. Number one, how much revenue do you currently have? Probably none, because you don't have FDA approval, right?
Yeah, we're pre-revenue.
You're pre-revenue, okay. And if let's say I'm an EMT, I'm in the field, either in a hospital or in the in the war theater. How do I know where the bleeding is so I can actually deploy it? I mean, how do you train people to actually find that hole? If I knew that I have a hole in a pig that's a centimeter wide and it's in the abdominal cavity, fine, I know where to place it.
Especially as an emergency tech, you're talking about crushing trauma. You're talking about it could be anywhere. This is not a case where you have one bullet hole you're trying to.
That's exactly the point. So how do I know how to train these people to deploy it correctly? It's really a follow-on from your question, Michael.
Yeah, no, those are phenomenal questions. So what happens right now, they basically measure the length of the catheter from the insertion site to where they want to be deploying in the zone of the body. They mark it and they insert it up until that point. At full deployment, we're 20 centimeters in length. And the beauty of that is you put us up in either major highway.
You're missing the point though. How do I know where so in other words, it's just I take a shot.
You're suggesting that 20 centimeters you can guess. You're saying we guess, Tyler, right? With 20 centimeters you can guess.
You can address all peripheral causes of bleeding in the descending aorta. Right?
And to be clear, the tube in the middle stays open. So you're blocking the outside. You're not blocking flow through the artery itself.
Absolutely correct.
All right.
So sorry to jump in there, David. I just wanted to clear.
No, that's fine. Yeah. So I'm interested in exploring it through a group called Medical Monday. Have Hall send me a deck. I'll introduce you to one of our people. I'd like to put you in front of Hoke Hospital, Virginia Hospital, and a couple of our other guys.
Amazing. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Right.
We actually have a mentor who suggested
Tyler, one more
that.
question from the audience. Julian asks, users are paramedics, not surgeons. Any user engagement so far? What's been the user engagement you've seen?
Incredibly positive. So we do customer discovery continuously, and we talk to people across the spectrum of healthcare, and they're all very excited for the device.
My biggest concern is your EMT techs, they're not nervous about accessing that artery, because that's been one of our big feedbacks when we've talked about other arterial access points for like stroke and other things. Because this is not, you're not the only one trying to access through that femoral artery. And yet the biggest concerns we get is that they're terrified of killing the patient by creating the incision there.
Yeah, no, absolutely makes sense. What I can share is the feedback we've gotten to date is incredibly optimistic and excited.
Okay, great. We're out of time. Thanks so much, guys, for great questions. Julian, thanks for your question as well. Thanks, Tyler. And we'll move to our next presenter, who is with us now, Scott Keetle of Balance Pharma. Scott, go ahead and share your slides, and let's kick off.
Hi, all. Are you able to hear me?
We hear you fine, Scott.
Okay, great. My video doesn't work, so I think Jason is going to present and I'm going to speak. And unfortunately, you just get to see that old real estate agent picture of me.
That's fine. Zoom is beautiful with this. It works fine.
All right.
So we
Okay,
can see the
everybody.
slides.
Yep, I can see them. Everybody read this one when you want to go to
You have
sleep.
the legal notice.
I'm Scott Cato. I'm the CEO of a company called Balance Pharma. We're trying to make anesthesia better, and we're focused right this minute on dental anesthesia, local anesthesia. That's the shot that you get when you're going to get numb at the dentist office. Next slide, Jason.
Okay.
Oh, new slides. Awesome. Gosh, I got to read the slide myself.
So yeah, this is just one we threw together today that shows some of the recent press we've gotten over the past 2 weeks coming off of Chicago. So yeah, Scott, I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, I'd have to read it, so we better move on.
Well, I'll tell you quickly, guys, and you'll see these later, but we had an article in Dr. Bicuspid. We had a successful Chicago meeting, which had over 21,000 dentists who are obviously, make up our end users. Had some great strategic meetings, which I'm sure Scott could touch on. Also this week, we had an Inside Dentistry who covered Dr. Howard Glazer, who is an NYU Smigel Prize Award winner and a leading clinical educator as well. So these just 2 quick examples of some of the press we've gotten this week.
All right. Let's go on to the next one.
Yeah.
Go on one. Yep. There you go. As we talked about, dental injections are painful, slow acting, unreliable. Nobody likes them. Doctors don't like them. Patients don't like them. One of the big problems with dental injections is that they're preserved in acid, hydrochloric acid to be specific. At the moment, there's no way to give an injection without giving that hydrochloric acid along with it. So we'll go to the next slide and look at how we solve that problem. So what we did was we came up with an anesthetic that does not have the acid in it. The way we did that was by using the container itself and just adding a little neutralizing agent in that container. So we get a product that's 25% less painful, 75% faster acting, and 33% more likely to get you numb. All the rest of the drug is just the same. It's got the same shelf life. It's got the same technique, the same equipment. We don't have to do anything else, just change the drug. And again, really the drug is not even changing. It's just the nasty acid that was in the drug that we're taking away from it. Okay. So this is just a slide that shows, and if you get the slide deck, you'll see this, but this just shows that, there's been a lot of research done on what happens if you take the acid out of the drug, because physicians and dentists have tried it by hand mixing. And we know very well that this works. We go to the next one, Jason. And this is the way we do it. I talked about that a minute ago. We've got 3 U.S. patents granted, I think 1 in South Korea, and then we've got a whole bunch pending in other jurisdictions. But you see there that you've got the standard cartridge. It goes into the syringe. With our cartridge, we just add a little bit of that bicarbonate powder to it. And then that mixes with the hydrochloric acid and just becomes water. And then you've got a good drug with no acid in it. Go ahead, next, Jason. So did dentists like this? Yes, they did. We did a lot of research with hundreds of dentists and patients across Europe and the United States. We asked dentists particularly, you know, are you likely to use this after we described it? And we got a phenomenal response. They believe it will increase referrals. They're likely to use it in their marketing materials. These two guys, one of them's probably the foremost expert on this subject, and then the guy below that is a textbook author.
You using it?
Professor Lee's supposed to be in here?
Who?
Professor Lee.
Oh, thanks, Dave. Then the second guy is a textbook author on dental anesthesia. So key opinion leaders love it. Dentists love it. Let's go to the next one, Jason. As far as FDA, this is an easy one to get through. Again, we're not changing the active pharmaceutical ingredients. They're going to be exactly the same. All we're doing is taking that nasty acid away. So we've had a couple meetings with FDA and discussed that matter. We have a 505(b)(2) path. All we really have to do is kind of show what we already know, which is that this won't harm anybody and it will work. Go ahead, Jason.
Yep.
This just shows a little bit about the competition, and fundamentally, we're going to be the only solution here that is less painful, faster acting, more reliable, FDA approved drug, standard dental cartridge, same shelf life, and a good retail sale price. Go to the next one, Jason. How big is the market? It's huge. The affluent markets that we're targeting in North America, Europe, Japan, South Korea amount to 744 million units by our best count. We think at the price that, we're suggesting going in to try to get a 35% share of that market, we can get about $2 in income on each cartridge. So it's a really, really big market. Go ahead, Jason. Yeah, so here we go again. We can sell at $3 wholesale. We'll sell to distributors that have an existing network and that dentists are used to buying from. We're going to make everybody a ton of money. The distributors will make more money. The dentists are going to make more money. And obviously our shareholders are going to make a lot of money too. That's our intention, at least. And this just shows, one model. They're all wrong, but this is just another wrong model of what we think revenue and income might look like across the globe and in North America. So it's really big, yeah. This just shows what we got to do from here to get there. It's about 33 months to launch. Not quite a year after that to income and profitability. Total runway is about $20 million in equity, and then we've got a little debt against just inventory and some of our equipment. And right now we're raising $6 million to get started on everything. Next one, Jason. Mm-hmm. We got a really terrific team. I probably don't have time to talk about everybody, but all these people are experts in their respective fields. All of them have a lot of experience, and I have full confidence in our team. Next one, Jason. Mm-hmm. This is our scientific advisory board. Again, Dr. Glazer, expert in general dentistry. Dr. Aldabaugh is a dermatologist and Mohs surgeon. Dr. Chu is an anesthesiologist. Mark Donaldson in pharmacology, and then 2 oral surgeons. So we're very well represented on our scientific board. And then this is just a few of our 100 or so clinical advisory board members from all over the country, all different specialties. Just lots of really opinion leading and really good dentists they're in here. Lots of instructors and lecturers and so forth. Go ahead, Jason. Versus other life science investment opportunities, we have a proven market need. We have a very large known existing market, very low regulatory risk, very low R&D cost, and a fast exit potential compared to drugs. No change in clinical practice. A very ripe competitive landscape. We're just up against two generics that don't have any ability to counter detail or work against us. There's no reimbursement here, so it's just dentists that buy this stuff, same as they buy gauze pads. In the markets we're targeting, very accessible distribution channels. You just sell wholesale to the existing distributors. We've got a good long patent life compared to most drugs because we're not going to be waiting on FDA for so long. And then we're Section 1202 qualified small business stock, which I think is a great thing. It's don't have time to get into that, but there's a tax exemption on capital gains for this. How am I doing on time, Jason?
Just over 5 minutes.
Okay, so the raise is current raise $500,000. It's a 20% discounted safe, and we're looking at an upcoming $6 million Series A if somebody's interested in that as well. We'll go to questions.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Dave, what's your first question?
Dave, you're on mute. Hey, Dave, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a dentist, but I do have a question. Why it seems like it's a very simple solution if it's the existing composition of the anesthetic plus an acid to put it into sodium bicarbonate, therefore take away the acid component. How come no one has ever thought about this before?
That's a great question. And the funny part is people have thought about this before. It's just that the cartridges we use are so tiny that no one was able to come up with a mechanical solution to do what we're doing. And we did it. And so that's a good question.
All right, two other quick questions for you. Does this reduce the efficacy of the anesthetic?
Not at all. Changes it not at all, other than to make it faster acting and less painful.
More reliable.
Okay, and final question, the safe note, 500K safe. Is that, what kind of safe is it? Is it post-money safe? If there is, what's the valuation on it? Most of us don't like safe notes.
Listen, we're open to other ideas, but the current thing is just a safe note with a 20% discount. So it's not pre-money or post-money. It's just
let me ask you this question, then just a quick follow-up. What's going to be your Series A valuation?
We're looking to see what the market says about that. We don't know. We don't know where it's going to be.
Yeah, so before I'd show any interest, I'd have to understand that. Because how much money have you guys invested out of your own cash, out of your own pockets?
Well, just me, you mean, or me and other people that are?
Well, how much has been invested so far, and how much has the executive team invested?
The executive team would be, I don't know, close to $500,000. And how much invested so far has been, Jason, I think it's right about 3.5 million or almost 4 now.
That's
And
correct.
most of it's by end users, by dentists.
Over 150 dentist and doctor investors.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, good job.
Thanks, Dave.
Cool. Thanks. Michael, what's your question?
Well, I've spoken with Scott and team before, so I don't want to give people the impression that this is the first bite at this apple. But my primary concern with you guys has always been that as a direct to the end user distribution, we need to know that the dentists are the ones that want to buy it. So talk a little bit more about the feedback you got from the dentists in terms of indicated interest. If they had it available, do you have purchase orders or indicated purchase agreements ahead of time? Because they're the ones that buy this, right?
The dentists are buying it. We can't do purchase orders because that's against the FDA regulations. But I tell you this, we put out, well, first of all, we did all this market research, couple $100,000 worth. So we asked, I think it was 614 total dentists, Jason, and I don't know, 100 and some patients.
Right.
And it was a phenomenal response. Glad to send that to you. But it's reams of paper, so I don't want to try to give you the details, but it was phenomenal in every way. The other part is, again, we've got end users, spending $10,000 to $100,000 to invest. 150 or more of those. And then you had another question. I forgot what it was, Mike.
It's okay. Just in terms of like your overall plan to distribute. Like we saw a company earlier today that had a very definitive plan about how to get into the distribution of their market. How are you going to access these dentists and them to get on board?
Oh no, we'll sell wholesale to the existing distributors, and they'll snap it up, no problem, because they're going to make more money on our cartridge.
And the wholesale distributors, you've already spoken with them, and they're eager to bring you guys on board to distribute.
Yeah, and there's not that many of them. There's two big ones that make up more than 50% of the market.
Right. And, well, 80 of the anesthesia.
We have a couple of questions from the audience. The first one is seems to be an elegant solution, but neutralization may be difficult to defend and feasible to circumvent. Could mean that commercialization relies on first entrant advantage. What's your take on those two?
No, it's I respectfully disagree. Our patents, people have been trying to do this for decades. Nobody's been able to do it. It's very difficult. And our patent mode is very deep and wide. It's just not easy to do what we're doing.
Okay, great. We're out of time. There are questions about IP. If you'd like to, in the follow-up time here, put some more comments in the chat box about intellectual property. I think there's interest in that as well, but I think we did answer it. Thanks so much for coming up here, Scott.
Yes, sir.
Jason.
Thank you.
So our next presenter, final one, is advanced telesensors. This is Joel. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Hall. Thanks for setting this up, and nice to meet you, Michael and David. I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can. Go ahead and kick off.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to start with this slide because almost a lot of people have or know of someone that's had a heart attack or at risk of heart failure. And what we are trying to do is minimize to avoid some of these tragedies. So the problem we are solving is reducing readmissions to hospitals due to for heart patients because it costs insurers billions of dollars and many lives are lost. And the solution is really a heart monitor that's always on that can remotely alert doctors and nurses to any abnormal heart rhythms, thus preventing cardiac events from escalating. So put yourself in the position of a cardiologist who loses patients from time to time or has to send them into critical care. What he wants is a way to remotely monitor his patients, to get early warnings on cardiac events so that he can adjust treatment, thus saving lives and minimizing penalties from Medicare due to readmissions. So we have a revolutionary way of doing this. It was developed at NASA and is protected by 6 patents by NASA itself, along with our own patents. It's a touchless heart monitor that doesn't use any wearables. It detects the micro vibrations of the heart using radar and sends critical alerts to the nurses and doctors so that timely intervention can be taken. So we have real competition, but what is interesting about cardio is that we can do a lot more than just the basic heart rate and respiratory rate. We have other critical elements we can detect. In addition, our competition definitely has a higher cost because of the kind of radars they use. We have used very standard, low-cost, high-volume automotive radar to achieve our purpose. So what is so compelling about this product that our customers want to use it? By law, Medicare reimbursements require at least 16 days out of 30 of monitoring data. We are the keystone to Medicare reimbursements because we automatically generate the 16 days of monitoring data without the patient doing anything or wearing anything. And wearables can't do this. So why am I so excited about this team? I've known Frank Reeves for over 20 years. I trust him. He has a background in hospital operations. Dr. Jason Zagrafsky is our chief medical officer and is a specialist in heart rhythms. The rest of the team has all the skills necessary to bring this product to market. consists of our two founders from JPL, Jet Propulsion Labs, Steve Monacos and John Armstrong. Kristen Norton, works with us on business development marketing, and Elisa Melanoza is our focus element for FDA compliance. So we have strategically focused the company on the $1.5 billion skilled nursing home market, our beachhead market, which is part of the fast-growing remote patient monitoring market. Our customers are patient care integrators that already have established customers. This keeps our customer acquisition costs very low, giving us a great return on investment. Now, keep in mind, cardio enables the entire RPM package to be reimbursed. So this is our unfair competition. Our business model is based on selling the hardware and licensing the software on a monthly basis. Just like Apple or Tesla, margins continuously grow as we move past the hardware cost. We're currently deployed in 3 nursing homes, and our patient care integrators have access to over 200,000 beds. And we are generating revenue right now from Medicare reimbursements. So why is this an interesting opportunity for you? Our 5-year projections indicate $102 million with high profit margins. With 2 small rounds of funding, we are profitable. And high profits means faster scaling and faster points to exit. So we're raising a small $2.5 million convertible note, and we've raised $500,000 to date to build our sales pipeline and achieve an ARR of $1 million and complete our FDA 510 clearance. Subsequently, after that, we'll raise a Series A equity round to scale the company and bring us to a strong exit. Here are some current acquisitions by major medical companies for remote patient monitoring wearable devices. Cardio will likely be a strategic acquisition, not based necessarily in the multiples of sales, and may not be many years out. Thank you for your time. I appreciate any questions you may have.
Great. Michael, what's your first question?
Yeah, I didn't see a calendar up there, Sajal, or maybe I just missed it. It's possible that I just was looking away at the time. Could you talk a little bit more about where you are in the approval process, your time to market, and first feedback from potential users?
Correct. So I actually make this a little bit tighter pitch, but we have been working with the FDA, and we have submitted a pre-submission this month in February. It took us a year. They kept raising the bar. We have a predicate device, which is one of the competitions that I mentioned. Netira is our predicate device. And we will be doing clinical trials. We've got together our CROs, and so we're ready to start that process. We expect that.
Clear, you're filing as a monitoring device, not a diagnostic, correct?
That is correct, yes.
A much easier approval process.
It's a much easier.
You're monitoring just the heart rate, or are you monitoring the quality of the heart? Like, what kind of data do you collect with the radar?
So we collect the radar heart rate and respiratory rate. We are targeting an accuracy of plus minus 10% or 3 beats per minute, based on FDA requirements.
Cost per unit?
Cost per unit, we've driven the cost down. Our current cost is about $100. We expect that's a not very large volume. We expect to drive that lower. And based on Medicare reimbursements, monthlies could be anywhere, depending who we work with, which is the patient care integrators, and depending on their slice, anywhere from $15 to $28 to $30, depending what part they're going to take off the top.
What are the regulatory issues around home monitoring care, like bringing?
So in fact, FDA particularly brought that up, and we try to make it very clear we're not working at the consumer level. So the way our current systems work is the cardiologist actually places the order for the remote patient monitoring. He engages with our patient care integrators, for instance, TRKD, and TRKD provides the full package, which includes our device. So we're actually not running in front and gaining and closing the customers. Our integrators are doing that. So they have the call center, the tier 1, tier 2 is all covered by them. It's only tier 3 in case our device plain doesn't work or is broken that we come into the picture.
One last question. My biggest concern with remote monitoring devices isn't the improvement over the current standard of care or the improvement over your current competitors. Like, that's easy, right?
Right.
Your competition is not with anybody that exists today. Your competition is with the product that comes out 6 months from now that uses my watch to do the same thing, right?
Actually, correct. Yeah. Correct.
that like I have my Amazon like tower can do it audibly or whatever, right? That's
Right.
your real competition. So
Right.
where does that stand, and what is your IP kind of barrier that keeps you in market even if these products come out? Like where does your IP stand on that?
So so there's two elements to our IP, right? One part of the element is really about radio waves detecting physiological symptoms. And we have a lock on that. Although there's some competition there, we're not too worried about that. The
Okay.
second piece of the IP is the
Does that
algorithm.
cover broad spectrum, or is that just for a single like frequency spectrum that you're
No,
registering?
it's a broad spectrum. And so it's defined
Radio
as
frequency monitoring.
radio frequency monitoring of physiological symptoms is something we have as a claim.
That's pretty broad.
That is really broad. It's one of the reasons I wanted to build this company. I mean, I've done a number of companies, but IP protection is one key element, whether you have that or not, and whether you can actually make a product that is low and cost effective in price, because the volume aspects was something I was looking at.
Yeah. All right. Other diagnosis. So right
So
now
we had a question.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So there's a question from the audience. So what's the advantage of radar monitoring? It wasn't explained. It seemed like it's more expensive while Wi-Fi is ubiquitous, but what's the advantage of radar monitoring?
It's a really good question. So you can use Wi-Fi to monitor. It's a radio wave too, and there are some people doing some of that. The problem with Wi-Fi is because the wavelengths are so big, you've got very large antenna, and it's omnidirectional. The key is we want to pick up the person we want to monitor, not someone walking down the corridor on the left or the right of the person. So a focused beam antenna is required. This is what was developed at NASA. The engineers from the Jet Propulsion Labs at the Mars rover mission actually built this. So it's a very focused antenna that goes down 30 degrees field of view and picks up the individual. That's how we get a good, strong signal, because of that sensitivity.
Yeah, also short. You need your wavelengths to bounce off of something in order to measure it.
Correct.
And if you're using Wi-Fi, you're specifically using wavelengths that are designed to penetrate, not bounce off.
Not bounce off, and you don't get the resolution need. So the higher the frequency, the better the resolution. But
Okay,
you got
so
to
that's a better
balance that.
question then. Given the energy level, do you have interference problems with other medical devices? Is there any concern with that?
There's
You're
actually
talking
none.
about a
Yes.
highly technological environment you're entering into, right?
You're absolutely right. That's a very good point. We've got FCC compliance, which means our emissions and interference are all well within the specifications. The measurements that we've done, the emissions that we have are 100 times lower than what your router is in your house today. Right. So we are actually right down at the noise flow. The advantage being there's not much 24 gigahertz type applications there, so you don't have much interference. And we're a fully synchronous design, which means I can put all my sensors in the same room, and each of them independently pick up the heart rate and not interfere with each other.
Great. And Dave, what's your first question?
Yeah, so I'm more concerned about how you're going to get what's on your pipeline, and what's your sales and marketing plan.
Good point. I think that was what Michael also brought up as a second point. So we're currently working with our first patient care integrator and working through some of the kinks. We're trying to get the agreement signed up by the end of this month. The target is to do about 2,000 beds in May and grow to 10,000 beds by December. And that'll put us at about $100,000 run rate per month in terms of units with this particular thing. We have two others. One is PAM Health. PAM Health is actually doing home health, which you had brought up. And so we're actually testing with 10 patients. We've already seen some very interesting patient data that shows trending that occurs, that they can be alerted to be able to go. And Medicare only doesn't allow them to go on more than one time a week. And so your sampling across 3 weeks is very limited.
Now, this is not a diagnostic. This is just a monitor. What else are you complementing it with? Do you have are there any other devices or co-marketing that you're doing so you can have a combination of the monitoring with a diagnostic, or is it related to does it go into a hospital system, a dashboard where they're monitoring multiples? Is it like an ADT type? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so we are currently working with can you go back to the first part of your question, David?
Yeah, the whole thing is on sales and marketing, and the question that I'm specifically raising is it an adjunct to or a complement for monitoring vis-a-vis diagnostic, and how are you doing the diagnostic?
Correct. So there are two pieces of the puzzle. One piece is the build, since we only do at least two vitals right now, heart rate and respiratory rate, right? There is blood pressure, SpO2, weight scale, et cetera, that go on. So a lot of the patient care integrators will bring those other devices in. The challenge has been with the other devices because you couldn't get 16 days, so more than 50% of the reimbursements were lost. We guarantee that, and all these other devices now become part of the benefit that the person can make a diagnostic inference on. So that's at the product and the integrated level. We initially did look at integrating these devices in because they were all Bluetooth devices. But in retrospect, we found that that would require us to maintain so much front-end support that these patient integrators were really solving a lot of problems for us and minimize that overhead. In addition, the device is being designed to migrate to this next set of things because there's a lot of AI ML that we've got in that we've not shown yet. So we can do apnea detection and AHI. So sleep apnea and sleep studies are the second piece of the equation that'll be in place. We can detect irregular heart rates because we can detect every pulse position. So we can either detect an irregular heart rate. In fact, I've been working with some patients that do that and bring in arrhythmia into that patient. And then the third piece we're working on, which we're trying to release next quarter, will be fault detection. So we can detect the fault signature. And that's just a few of the
All right, so let me interrupt
Yeah.
for 1 second. Yeah, let me interrupt for 1 quick second. If you can do,
Please.
the heart rate, and you can take a look at AFib things. Do you also see this as a potential for, monitoring for potential stroke?
Yes, so what we've seen with the papers we've read is when people have stroke, there's always in less than 30 days, there's a likelihood that they're going to have a recurring event. And that comes because you've got a cardiac decompensation that you can see, and there's a deterioration in the heart rate or heart rate variability. We also deliver heart rate variability as part of our package. So we expect to see, in fact, Fitbit has put that paper out in terms of looking at heart rate variability as a precursor to cardiac decompensation.
Thank you.
How do you handle like patient or target specificity? Like if there's 7 people in the room, like how do we know who's who? And like, do we have problems with moving patients versus like stationary?
Right. So we can manage normal movement, and by normal movement is something that is not rhythmic. So for instance, you can't be on a treadmill, your heart rate and the treadmill running are roughly the same. It creates a problem and an interference of a signal that's almost 10,000 times bigger than what we can detect. So it blocks that whole view. But normal movement is random, and we can eliminate random data from the repetitive pattern. So that sort of works in our benefit to be able to do that. So when it comes to multiple targets, right now we are a single target sensor. We will be multi-targeted to be able to scan across, and it's a simple radar technique because you electronically scan your radar across the audience, right? So you can pick people out independently. We do have other patterns that indicate that we do have the ability to detect cardiac signatures, and so over a period of time you can identify who is the caregiver and who's the patient and eliminate caregiver information if you so choose not to use. One of the applications that we were looking at that we did not have, we wanted to focus on getting business a little faster, was in the dialysis side, where you have anywhere from 12 to 20 patients that are on 4 to 6 hours of dialysis, and some of them pass away during that time. They were concerned, and so one of the things they wanted was a multi-target ability as opposed to mounting the sensor on each of them. So those are some of the
Thanks to Joe. Great
applications.
presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, we're at the end of our time. I want to thank the presenters for great presentations today.